Please welcome Blue State Digital's Joe Rospars, Chris Thomas, the Chief Innovation Officer at Sierra Club, and Gary Frenkel of TakePart.com, and NBC's Scott McGrew.
Man, I hope one of you guys brought a video clip. Good afternoon, everyone. There is a bar, I'm told, in the back, and I wouldn't be offended at all if you walked over, got yourself a drink, and came back. That would be totally fine. It's 3:45, so, and you're on company time. So, I have with me a bunch of really great men who have done some really fantastic things, and I'm going to start over there with Joe Rospars. I wrote that down phonetically, still couldn't get it right. Gary Frenkel is right next to me, and Chris Thomas with the Sierra Club as well. If you would just take 30 seconds each and just give your own biography as opposed to me trying to walk them through it.
Sure. Joe Rospars. I'm founder and CEO of a company called Blue State Digital. We do digital campaigns and technology for advocacy groups, nonprofits, and brands to help them mobilize communities to drive change in their marketplace or in the world. We're best known for going and helping President Obama run his two successful presidential campaigns. We've done that along the way, but we've been around 10 years, and we work with lots of great organizations here, including the Sierra Club, and all over the country and the world.
I'm Chris Thomas. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at the Sierra Club. Sierra Club is the nation's oldest and wisest or biggest grassroots environmental organization in the country. We spend a lot of our time doing lands work, protecting the environment, doing campaigns, work against fossil fuel industries, and we've been really focused lately on how to use technology to really mobilize our 2.5 million constituents and to also figure out new ways, innovative ways to do online campaigning and advocacy in better and more effective ways.
Hi, I'm Gary Frenkel. I'm the SVP of Digital Products and Technology for TakePart. We're a division of Participant Media, which is a global entertainment company that inspires and compels social change. On the film side, we made Food Inc., The Cove, An Inconvenient Truth, Lincoln, The Help, Contagion, a bunch of others. We have a television network called Pivot, and TakePart is the website that we run. And everything we do, we try to connect people to ways to get involved, whether that's through grassroots efforts, connecting them to nonprofits, and making it really easy for people to get involved through our digital content.
So guys, what I want to talk about is, companies have tried, and commercial companies have tried to motivate users into buying things. I want to talk about how nonprofits or social good can motivate people who probably were already leaning that way, but not necessarily, to get involved. And I'd like to start with you, Joe. As with such big wins, give us what would other people need to know?
I think for nonprofits, the question is always one of capacity. And I think these two guys are interesting because they come at opposite sides of the spectrum. We work with organizations big and small and new and old, but you have, on one hand, an organization that's been around for a very long time exists just to build capacity and constantly be campaigning, whereas on the other hand, you're taking a brand that literally doesn't exist, a film, and trying to make the most of that individual moment
Joe,
to turn that into
let me jump
capacity.
in and just capacity. Define capacity for me. Are we talking about server load, or are we talking about something else?
People. Capacity is, in a nonprofit sense, people's energy and willingness to do something, whether that's chip in $5, volunteer for a few hours, go to an event, trying to draw media attention to something. And so whether you're a new nonprofit or a big, institutional one that's been around the block, the question is, can you build and sustain capacity of people's time, attention, and energy to go do those things that you need done?
How much of that, though, was built in? We're talking about Barack Obama, who, particularly in the first term, there was such an enormous buzz. There was a lot of capacity already there, wasn't there? Or did you have to motivate people to get involved?
Well, I think people have, there's a set of opportunity for any organization, whether it's a campaign, a candidate, or an organization that exists to support an issue. There's a certain level of interest potential out there, but the question is whether the organization can build the staff and programs to actually go out and get those people signed up to do something, to have them give over an email address or give over their phone number to be contacted by a local volunteer to help pull them into the process. And when we started with Obama in January of 2007, there was nothing, right? Because he was a new guy on the scene. He didn't have a national network of donors and all that. And Hillary Clinton, who we're running against, very much did. And so we had to build something organic from scratch really, really fast. And of course that meant digital first. But the organization had to come and build that capacity. And it was those volunteers and those small donors that were our margin of victory in the primaries in 2007 and 2008, and also in our re-election campaign.
Now, your capacity is built in. Chris, yours is an older organization where I'm sure if you were to stereotype the Obama user is a computer literate, younger, motivated person, and if you were to stereotype, a 120-year-old organization may not be quite as young appealing. Can you find capacity out there in the young, digitally literate?
Well, I would challenge the idea somewhat that you have to be young to be digitally literate. That's a thing that we believe, and that is probably true to some degree, but there are a lot of people who are plus 50 who use computers.
I'm thinking more Twitter and Kickstarter and the things that it might be easier on an Obama campaign than it is on.
So the key thing for us really is it's one thing to generate awareness through this medium. You can get the word out, you can inspire people, you can anger them, you can get the fire up. The problem for people in that paradigm is, what do they do after that? And the reason they come to an organization like ours is because we offer real solutions, and we have 120 years of doing grassroots organizing. We have that infrastructure and that mentality already in place. And when I think about this stuff, I think it kind of reminds me of in the 90s, we talked about bricks and mortar. We're like really good at the bricks and mortar side of things. Nonprofits traditionally haven't been great at the digital side of things. It's the uniting of the two is when we start to see real change start to happen. So the fact that we're an older organization also means that we have the hard part solved already. We know how to make change happen. We're now plugging the digital media into that in order to add an exponential amount of power to it.
What's working for you best in the new digital world? And it might be Facebook or Twitter, but it might be something else. I mean, that a tool that you did not have 10 years ago.
That's a good question. Facebook has been really good for us for whatever reason. We have grown very rapidly on Facebook, and we have motivated a younger group who probably wasn't aware of the Sierra Club, at least outside of being like the magazine that their parents got. So that's been quite good for us. Data has been huge for us. We are trying to figure out how to create really meaningful relationships with vast groups of people who we might only encounter in the digital space. An organizer traditionally on the street has a one-on-one relationship with the volunteer or the activist, and they can motivate them, and they can dialogue with them, and they can work together. When we look at virtual relationships, the glue there that builds the relationship is data and understanding how people are acting at any given moment, where we're collecting the data, how we're analyzing and understanding the data. So that's something very new for us, and it's hard. That's a hard thing for us. And then it falls back to email. You say 10 years, but email still is a very powerful tool for us to motivate people and to get them to do action as well.
Is it still your primary or?
Probably, though I personally don't believe that it has a fantastic future, and we are aware, even though we will always get, if we're doing a fundraising ask, email works quite well. So that's now, but we're looking 5 years ahead, and we're thinking it could potentially go off the cliff for various reasons. So we have to be ready.
Okay, no, expand on that. Why go off the cliff?
Well, I think that especially with younger people, I'm stereotyping now, thanks. It's becoming, they're not using email as much. They're using mobile, they're using instant messaging, they're SMSing, they are using, there's a million different messaging platforms now out there, and they change very rapidly. So this is the way that they're used to communicating now online using virtual. And so, yeah, I don't think that their email is going to feel quite antiquated to them when they start to move into, adult interactions.
Gary, one of the advantages you have are all the not non-traditional, but other ways that you're getting a hold of people. I had not heard of Take Part, but then you said participant media, and I thought, I know that. And then you said the Cove, the movie about the dolphins, which if you haven't seen is phenomenal. And I instantly knew what you did. That you have these different channels that you're able to bring people into.
Yeah, we look at the films and our television shows and even our digital content as on-ramps to the cause. So for something like the Cove, obviously the issue there is dolphin protection and stopping the slaughter in Japan every year. But what we found was that the community of people who were engaged with the Cove really cared about marine life in general. And so for us, it was about expanding out from that one issue that was in the film to a whole movement around how do you protect marine animals. And we've grown our Facebook community, which is a big source of traffic for us, to 750,000 people. And that's 5 years after the film was made.
Well, and the advantage to a film is there are lots of people who haven't seen it who are then going to see it and recommend it and then be drawn in once again.
That's right, especially
a tweet,
documentaries.
It only lasts for so long.
That's right, especially documentaries. Platforms like Netflix have done a great job at getting people more engaged in documentary films. And the theatrical prospect of documentaries are still being figured out. So the power of being able to go from a digital medium like Netflix to something like Take Part with one click makes it really easy for us to start to create a community around that.
Now, if I were the CEO of Participant Media and I came to you and I said, Gary, this Blackfish movie is huge. Can you construct some sort of marketing campaign or something online? We didn't do it.
We actually did work with CNN.
Okay, fair enough. All right,
but
another example where it's this isn't ours, but I think we can jump in on this. What sort of strategies would you employ?
Well, I mean, there's some basic stuff, like you can do SEO work where people are searching for Blackfish and then we point similar. But we also feel, as Participant, we're happy to work with other filmmakers, even if they're not our films, to help make a movement around what they've created.
Fair enough. What I'm thinking is there are people who, they are not going to be able to make the big charity drive, but they can ride the coattails of something else. Can you think of any examples of what might be out there in the future as far as releases and things that people might be able to think, this is what we want to ride our coattails on?
Not sure I understand the question.
Well, what I'm saying is that there's somebody out there who wants to drive usership, wants to drive eyeballs to whatever cause they have. And Blackfish, for instance, drove eyeballs to the entire concept of this recreational aquarium, where other charities benefited. Is there something out there in the future, in your pipeline, that you're thinking is going to be big that somebody could say, you know what, I can glom onto that?
Yeah, I think it's about data privacy. We had a film that just came out called Internet's Own Boy, which screened yesterday. And that really is about Aaron Swartz, who created Reddit and was a victim of prosecutorial overreach and killed himself because he was not able to make the case that information should be free. And so I think that's an area that we're heavily invested in across all of our platforms. We believe that users don't really understand what happens when they give their data away, and they don't understand all the ways that we can drive people to learn more about the issues they care about by letting information be free. For example, there are academic institutions that have journals that are not public, and yet they're paid for by public funds because they're public universities. Aaron Swartz, quote unquote, liberated them. We believe that information should be free and that there should be ways for people to access this information to make better things in the world.
What is Participant Media doing? When Aaron stole the documents, it outraged it outraged the publisher, but it outraged people that these were things that were not available, and that was his point.
Yeah.
Now, what can you do to continue that message on beyond, I understand, a documentary, but what other things are you doing as Participant Media to say, doesn't this piss you off?
Right. It's really about being more transparent about the media that you consume, knowing who's behind it, knowing what they do with your data. So giving users the tools to understand how their media flows through from a piece of content to the data that they collect.
In what ways are you finding, and any of you can do this, but in what ways are you finding the recommendation system or data that's, and you were touching on it earlier, if you are enraged by this, you may also feel passionately about this, much like Netflix and movies. What sort of data, where's that lead you, or where are you finding opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, we find it really challenging to move people from cause to cause. That is something that we look at all the time. And so what we're looking at are things like the latent semantic space, where you can really start to see the relationships between different causes in ways that human beings can't really analyze. And so by investing in machine learning and big data, you can start to draw connections between causes in ways that you wouldn't have expected. An example might be, we released Food Inc., and then we drove people from there to care about hunger issues. And, starting to kind of move people down.
Tell me the name of the film, I missed it.
Food Inc.
Food Inc., okay, thank you. And drove people to hunger issues.
Yeah, and so then when we had we grew this huge community with Food Inc. We have about 1 million people on Facebook that cared about that film and that look at it as a lifestyle. And when we released a documentary about hunger called A Place at the Table last year, we were able to draw that audience from sort of the conscious eating movement to caring about feeding Americans.
Chris, are you seeing the same sort of behavior? If you care about this, you may care about that, and it's working?
Yeah, definitely. But like you said, it's really hard to do. You need a lot of content. You need a lot of dynamic content, a lot of variety, obviously. We do things, we're working on our platform that we're building. We're using our chapter network to generate the content. We're trying to get as local as possible and having people in the chapters generating the campaigns so that we can pull in as much content, as much diverse kind of content from all over the country, really local level. So we can bring somebody in on a big national campaign and then point them in the direction based on how they, the last 6 petitions that they signed or letters that they sent. We can direct them to similar content that they might not, it's a discovery process that they might not have known of. We also do other things like, it's funny we're talking about data privacy, but we scrape their Facebook interests, for example, and we can look at what they're into.
Tell me more about that. Yeah, what does that tell you?
Well, we can make, we're just starting with this.
Because I'm curious as a Facebook user.
Then maybe I shouldn't be talking. But no, we can infer certain things about people, where they live, what they're into. If they're interested in music, we might point them more toward social media rather than pointing them toward like a big heavy petition that probably wouldn't interest them as much. As I said, we're just getting started with this. We're building these algorithms and trying to figure it out, but mostly we're just testing a lot with it and really trying to figure out what works. We don't know yet exactly what the...
Joe, I suspect you do know what works.
Yeah, well, so it's interesting because we work with a lot of organizations that are overwhelmed almost by the amount of data that they have and the opportunity to get to know these flows between these campaigns. Because it's very rare that an organization just has one thing that they're after. So whether it's Sierra Club or something like the NAACP, they care about civil rights, they care about voting rights, they care about equal justice, all these sorts of things. And it's very tempting, you want to figure out how to dish up the best opportunities for people, right, and make it as easy as possible for them to participate more. But I think what a lot of organizations are discovering is that they can't be masters of the universe in that way, and that you have to accept that people are going to engage on their own terms, and they may just want to be on this one thing about the coal plant near where they live and cleaning that up. And there's more data now to surface the fact that they are just doing that one piece of your campaign. And sometimes that's okay, and you have to realize that you have to serve them and give them more opportunities to go deeper on that one thing.
And I'm wondering, Gary, if you're seeing that. I mean, there is that, right? If you care about this, you may care about that. But then again, if you care about this, maybe you'd like to contribute even more money in this category.
I actually think that the next frontier in this area is to provide data back to users about their impact. And I think all of us are probably wrestling with the same problem where people are taking action, they're signing petitions, they're making donations, but they're not getting feedback about what it actually means for the causes they care about. So we think that the path to that deeper engagement to get people further down that funnel is in giving people.
Can you give me an example of? I mean, and the most phenomenal example of that is and I apologize for not remembering what charity it is, but where they identify the child who's going to be benefiting. This was back when you mailed a check based on an infomercial, but you got a picture of a kid.
Super powerful. Incredibly
powerful. Are you doing anything like that, or can you give me an example of, I don't know, we might do this?
Well, I mean, we're starting to dip our toe in those waters. It's a very, very complicated problem to solve because there's so many ways that impact is manifested. It could be legislative change. It could be helping an individual on the ground. I would say the way that we do that is when you take an action with us, we will update you on what happened with that action. So if you signed a petition, we'll tell you when it's been delivered. We'll tell you when it's going to lead to some sort of legislative vote that you should then contact your senator or congressperson about. So that's baby steps towards it, but I think ultimately what we want to get to is almost like an analytics dashboard that you can sort of see based on the actions you've taken, you've helped make this change in the world.
I've seen that on Kickstarter where you put your money in and the thing hasn't even been built yet, and they send you the email that says, all right, now we've done this. Oh my goodness, we flew to China and we found a factory, and it's exciting. I mean, it's fun as opposed to, oh, that's right, I funded that.
Well, people, Kickstarter is an investment. And taking an action is an investment as well. So it stands to reason that that investment should result in some sort of feedback.
Yeah.
A great example of that on the nonprofit space is Kiva, which does micropayments, microloans, and they use the platform. They use digital technology incredibly well in that way, and it's really effective. And we're thinking exactly the same way, that feedback is the way to engagement for people. They want to feel like their action actually means something, and they're not just sending a petition into a black hole somewhere and then hoping that 2 years from now something will change.
Yeah, and I think part of that is actually helping people to discover where they can have that impact, because I think that's part of the issue, is to let people know that there are those campaigns or those other organizations that they can contribute to. And so there's a thing that actually popped up this week. It's called $1 a Day, and you sign up and it charges you $30 for the month, but every day you get to see a new nonprofit organization that your dollar is going to. And so they've vetted all of these organizations, but it's a discovery opportunity for you to learn by finding out that your dollar that day went to such and such. But it's an incredible way for people to discover new ways to give, and if they're inspired by one of those things, maybe they wind up taking that one that you got on Thursday and doing something more, or signing up for their email list, or going deeper on whatever that particular cause is.
Well, and it furthers what these guys were talking about, or even the fun Kickstarter example of this constant circle of reinforcement. I invest $30, and every day I get to feel good each time as I learn more about this or that or the other thing. Are you thinking about, or have you already, Chris, got the media in place for this? I mean, that you would have the TV crew or the things that relevant media does. Participant, I'm sorry, does, but the TV crew who can go to the forest and show me what got done, or the photographers who can show me all of these things. I mean, that's going to be a very important part of any sort of charity, is sort of the documentarians of that charity show me what you're doing.
Yeah, content is huge. That's what it's all about, and it's what we're not great at. But we do, as I mentioned earlier, have this network of people, of volunteers, and we're always looking for ways to engage our volunteers. People show up at your door, and they knock on the door and they say, what do you want me to do? We haven't never had a problem with that. We have had problems with figuring out what the effective things are to get them to do. So this is the sort of stuff we're starting to think about now. How can we employ them in a really productive, positive way using digital media to do exactly like what you just said? Go out and document it. Go out and follow the change. That's your role as a volunteer. And that's super powerful for us and really effective in engaging people and helping the people who have opted to work on this campaign to understand what's going on and to feel like change is actually happening. Because if people don't feel like what they're doing is meaning something, is actually leading to meaningful change, they'll just stop doing it. It comes back to that black box, the black hole situation where I'm doing stuff, but maybe it's not doing anything. And especially with something like climate change, it's a really big issue. It's a long-term issue. It's a complex issue. It's a very supercharged, heated, controversial issue. People give up pretty quick. Everybody's worried about it. Some people are really, really worried about it and desperate to do something about it, but you can't put your hands on it.
And you can't update somebody day by day, this is what we accomplished with climate change.
It doesn't have the sense of urgency that other issues have.
Well, do you think that that's because individuals can only do so much, that
Yeah.
climate change can only be solved at the
Well, and it's such a
institutional
macro
level.
level,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
It's-
Well, yeah, what can you do? You can worry about it. You can vote a certain way every once in a while. You can support organizations where people are working on it and hope that they fix it somehow or do the right thing. But I think that people really want, I don't know if they really want to actually I think they do want to feel like their actions are adding up to something. But I think that they also really want to, they want to feel like there are other people who are involved and that there is a sense of urgency there that they can actually put their arms around and understand it in a much more micro way rather than this macro way. Like, here's one thing, I've broken it down to this one thing I can actually do. I can use a platform to recruit a bunch of people in my community to go clean up this park, or to go clean up this river, or to go to a town hall meeting to get this thing passed, or whatever. And then they can actually do that, and then they can see the result of that and how that connects to a lot of other people doing this kind of thing. And that adds up to a lot of power and a lot of
Convincing the
change.
city council to get rid of plastic bags
For
is
example.
easier than trying to change the climate, even if it is the same
Yeah.
effect.
So let's break it down. But what we need is the technology to build a platform that will add it all up, that will, create a superstructure of these actions that people can go look at and feel like, wow, change is really happening. Things are getting cleaned up. Bad things are being moved out. Good things are coming in because of the work that we're doing. Right now, we don't have that.
Joe, with just a couple of minutes left, I want to ask you about the presidential elections ahead. I mean, it was 8 years ago, and Twitter didn't, 2007, 2006. You had new tools at your disposal. If you were to start from scratch, what new tools will the next set of candidates, or maybe the next set of candidates have that you wished you had?
It's interesting. I mean, I remember sitting in my office in Chicago during the first presidential campaign, Obama campaign, and folks went out to go stand in line for the first iPhone during that campaign. I remember the afternoon when the staff was gone. And to think of the ability to communicate with people in the 2012 race and what will happen in 2016 is the dual screen when people are watching debates on television, the fact that you're in people's pocket. What we discovered just even with fundraising and sort of breaking news stuff, the ability to drop a text message that refers to an email that they got earlier in the day, these kinds of things, like you really are ubiquitously able to touch the people who are most important to you, and that makes a big difference in key moments. I mean, you have people who, when they are, we had people donating to the Obama campaign via SMS, at 11 o'clock at night on New Year's Eve, because it was also
And that was a
fundraising
revolution.
deadline.
It was phenomenal. Yes.
Yeah, and to be able to do that, the difference is, we've been able to send text messages for a long time, but the ability to have somebody click on an iPhone that just opens the browser and it takes the contribution straight away because they're logged in, or they can just simply reply with the amount that they want to give. That's just another leap of the seamlessness with which people can take action. And so I think that's going to be the objective for 2016 on both sides, is to reduce the barriers to people taking some action that they know is meaningful.
I'm going to go off script for just a minute. We've got just a couple of minutes left. Is there anybody out there that has a question? I could just walk this out to you. It's very hard to see you, and perhaps there isn't any, especially for Joe from Blue State, or, well, all of them for that matter. You are questionless? No, there's one. Very good. Hold on. Here, you just take this from me, and I'll come down and get it. No swearing.
Hell, no. So Joe, all of you really. So MTV, Rock the Vote, Paris Hilton, right, took a lot of flack for engaging millennials without actually being able to follow through with action. How are you guys addressing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a content question around engagement, with millennials, but it's tempting to focus on the technology piece as going, leaning towards the young side of the demographics. But our average online donor in the 2012 campaign was 55 years old, and what the millennial generation wants is a more responsive political system and more responsive organizations that respect their time and value their contribution more. But that's not just a thing to appeal to one group. That's an aspiration that every organization should have. And so what we focus on, what winds up being a way to increase youth voter turnout in 2012 over 2008, which nobody thought we could do. We didn't do that specifically by trying to concoct some special sauce for young people and millennials, but rather to run a more open and transparent and accessible organization, full stop, for everybody. And what it turns out is that when you do that, young people who are busy and wired want to come and figure out how they can help do something meaningful as quickly as possible. But it also makes it a lot easier for my mom to contribute to the campaign. And so lowering that barrier to entry is the imperative there, and that's what we see people responding to in that age group. And I think that's the, you get off track when it becomes a sort of patronizing content, type exercise, when really I think what people are hungry for, and really of all ages at this particular moment in time in our political system is more responsive system and more responsive organizations that value them.
We found that younger people, millennials, don't care about brand, especially when it comes to the organization. They care about the issue. So we're trying to rethink of our big organization, our big nonprofit organization, more as a service provider. How are we going to connect people to the issues they care about? That's our value, is becoming a service platform that enables people who aren't interested in supporting Sierra Club or Greenpeace or whatever. They just want somebody to give them tools to actually make change happen.
I agree with Joe's comment about reducing that barrier between getting inspired and taking action. We've built a platform called the Take Part Action Platform, which allows any publisher to embed widgets on their site that programmatically connects whatever they're writing about to ways to get involved. And we're finding that it's a super successful way to get people to take action right at the moment of inspiration.
And find that at takepart.com?
We do, yes, we have it at takepart.com, but any publisher, if you're interested, give me a call.
Fantastic. Can I get a round of applause for these fellas, and we'll see them off stage. Thank you, fellas. Chris?